I just got off of a podcast interview with my buddy Klaus Lauder, Shopify expert. He's been a digital marketer since before the internet. Like, really, really brilliant guy. Really enjoyed the conversation. And he and I were talking about the bloodbath that is Facebook ads right now. And I'm so sorry to laugh. It's not funny. It's just sometimes all you can do is laugh because it's because of how sad some of it is. And we were talking about mitigating risks. And, you know, the thing that happened to Facebook could have been predicted. And, you know, God, it's so annoying to say that. Like, what, you know, every pundit on the planet stands up and goes, oh, yeah, I saw that collapse coming. I didn't see the Facebook thing coming at all. You know, until we saw what the iOS update was going to do. And then I was like, oh, my goodness. But the point that I want to make is what happened to Facebook could have been predicted because Facebook is a disembodied entity. Facebook receives its traffic from a device, a browser. It is at the mercy of whoever it is that's sending that traffic. And so if you looked at Facebook from a fail point perspective, you'd look at it and say like, oh, okay, you know, the web browser, the CPU, the device has the ability of impacting Facebook's efficacy in a number of different ways. And it's not unheard of. That's the reason for like net neutrality laws. And you know, we were concerned about this with internet service providers and their ability to throttle up and down performance based off of sites that they liked or didn't like. So this isn't the first time that this conversation has been had. It is maybe the biggest stroke we've ever seen, the biggest blow, let's say, in the war now between these trillion-dollar brands. But the annoying statement is it could have been predicted. And so then it brought me to thinking, well, what about Google Ads should we be predicting now? And I'm going to offer my best prediction, and we'll see how well I do. And by the way, y'all, if I was right about any of this stuff, I'd be a much wealthier person. So, but in fairness, I know more about Google Ads than most people do. And not because I'm any smarter, but just because I spend every day in it, every day. And so with Facebook, the risk was outside of Facebook because Facebook is a disembodied entity. And if there was something to prepare against, it would be diversifying traffic channels and strategies. With Google, the risk is from within Google. Google's a Leviathan. It's an unbelievable mechanism of control and data collection and interpretation. The risk to us isn't in being on the wrong boat as the boat sinks. It's the fact that Google is moving very actively towards inhibiting our ability to see and control anything. So the analogy that I've been offering people, and I'm getting a little bit better at this, I've changed it mildly, but Google Ads 5 years ago was like driving a Formula One race car, and you're going 250 miles. I don't know what that is in kilometers. Sorry, but you're going, you know, you're flying down the road and you're making all these micro adjustments, and you're doing so, you know, at the speed of, you know, as fast as a person could possibly be carried effectively. And there was a lot to do and a lot to manage. Well, it's interstellar space travel. And instead of a Formula One race car, you're moving at the speed of light and beyond. And when you're flying at the speed of light, you can't make adjustments because you can't think that quickly. Nobody can. You have to rely on the machine. And so now it's about calibrating the machine and servicing the machine. And here's where the risk exists for all of us. If you're relying on Google Ads, if you look at what Google is doing very openly and blatantly, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is like a stated goal, in as much as you can see a stated goal through the interpretation of somebody's actions. And, you know, Jordan Peterson says, if you ever want to know what somebody's up to, just look at the results of their actions, which makes all the sense in the world. So the results of Google's actions, they're creating black boxes, right? DSA, Smart Shopping, Performance Max. They're creating mechanisms that are like that spaceship I just talked about. You can't impact the decisions within the black box. All you can do is service the box. And Google, and this isn't anything against them, by the way. This is the way maybe a business should function. Google's not there to make sure that your campaigns perform. Google's recommendations to you are not to make sure your campaign performs better. If that's a fringe benefit, awesome. But Google's primary goal is to maximize the value of its inventory. And that's something that we all need to get through our head and really spend some time meditating on. Google wants to maximize the value of its inventory. God bless them. So do I. So does anybody selling anything. You want to maximize your time. You want to maximize your space. You want to maximize your audience. Google wants to maximize the value of its inventory. And you, by the way, are its inventory if you really think about it. Like, it's the eyes on the site. You're the product. They want to maximize the value of their inventory. Google doesn't want your standard hierarchical structure because that lends itself to the Pareto distribution, which is the 80-20. 20% of the vendors end up with 80% of the business. And what's interesting is when you zoom in and out, that stays true. So of the 20%, 20% of those have 80% of that business, and so on and so forth. And it carries all the way through with shocking regularity and predictability. In those events, however, the 20% that controls the 80% also controls the ecosystem, and it puts the media agent at the mercy of those 20%. And you've seen this with traditional marketing mechanisms, radio, television, newspaper. They ended up being owned by their largest advertisers because their largest advertisers performed the best, spent the most, and dictated terms. Google doesn't want to be there. As a matter of fact, it's to Google's best interest to be more diversified. Obviously, one of the things, if you're ever engaging with M&A groups, we do consulting for FINRA licensed broker dealers. And one thing that businesses don't like seeing is that anybody makes up more than 10% of your income. If one client makes up more than 10% of your income, and I shouldn't even say 10% because it depends on the industry. But if one client makes up a tax relevant amount of your gross revenue, that's a bad sign. Google doesn't want to be there either. And the best way to hedge against that is to diversify their client base as granularly as possible. Is granularly a word? I'm sure. Somebody spot check me. Here's what that means. They don't want a hierarchical structure where the cream rises to the top. Instead, they want every advertiser spending as much as that advertiser can afford to spend, up to the point to where they'll continue to spend. And that's the key distinction, because if you'll spend $1,000 a month and continue spending, they want you doing that as opposed to spending $2,000 a month where they know you'll taper off in 90 days, which means they know they have to provide a return, but you'll notice that the returns are getting commoditized. This is the risk that we all run. This is what we see happening, and we're actually watching it happening in real time, because Google knows, think about the things that Google knows. It's a three-dimensional, there's three axes. The x-axis, Google knows what inventory is available. The y-axis, Google knows everybody willing to bid on that inventory. The z-axis, Google knows how much those people make. What? Now, and that's obviously more true in some industries than it is in others. But because Google knows all of that, it's the ultimate price fixing opportunity. And you can't convince me, nobody in the world would ever be able to convince me that they haven't done that. That's what a machine learning mechanism would do. As a matter of fact, if you think about the definition of machine learning, it's learning independent of human intervention. So even if Google didn't set out, state, hey, we want a price fix, if all they did was tell a really intelligent machine, maximize the value of this inventory, it would require that level of price fixing in order to do that. They'd actually have to code in the stopgap, the safety measure, not to do that. And in so doing, create inefficiencies that would nullify the machine, which means it's almost a contradiction in terms that they're not doing this. It's impossible that they're not doing this. And if that's what they're doing, then going all the way back to a narrative that I've been hitting for a really long time, it is you versus Google. That's the competition. That's the auction. That's the fight. We all think it's us in our ecosystem, me versus my competitor. It's not. It's you versus Google. And this is what I'm getting after. And what I'm about to say is so obscenely self-serving, but I'm going to say it anyway. You have to have an advocate in this fight. You have to have a coach, a freelancer, an employee, an agency, somebody that knows what the hell they're doing. Because if you think about the fact that Google's trying to maximize the value of its inventory, not maximize the efficacy of your campaign, and it's doing so instead of black boxes, that means that you need to go against the grain of Google in order to maximize the value of your campaign for yourself. You need to do things that are counter to Google's recommendations. By definition, assuming you accept the premise of my thesis here, then as long as the premise is accepted, I don't think the output can be argued. I think it's axiomatic. You have to know Google well enough to know when not to do what it's telling you to do. Again, it's interstellar travel, and you're moving at light speed, and you have to figure out effectively how to hack the machine. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to hack the machine because it wants to push as many spaceships as far into space as it possibly can, but you're in a race. Google doesn't care about your race. It actually wants to slow you down because then it maximizes the value of its own inventory, which I've said it nauseum now, so I'll stop. We have to learn the marketing mechanism. You have to know how to function inside of Google's ecosystem, and you have to be ready to fight with Google, which means testing, iteration. So I'm not telling you have to work with me as an agency. To be honest with you, for a lot of you, I don't want your business, nor do I think I could even take it. There are some industries out there that we just can't function in. But you need to be responsible to yourselves and learn how Google Ads works, or have somebody on staff or available and accessible to you that knows. Because if you follow Google's lead, you risk the same fate that all the Facebook advertisers had when they put all their eggs in that basket. Facebook was a disembodied entity, and we saw what happened to those that didn't diversify. With Google Ads, you can't fall in line. You cannot fall in line. That's the really critical key. We've got a campaign right now that has I don't know exactly what it is. My partner will do a video on it, but I think it is like a 450% ROAS and a 0% quality score, or optimization score, excuse me. Which, again, by definition, tells you exactly what it is Google's trying to do. Google's own reporting shows a high ROAS and low optimization score, which means they're not optimizing for output for you. They're not optimizing for TROAS. They're not optimizing for TCPA. They're optimizing for their inventory. This is the risk. And this is the risk that we need to run. And following Google's rules, following Google's lead is going to be detrimental and damaging, and it's going to get more so as Google leans into its black boxes. And by the way, if you notice what they just did with Performance Max, which is nuts, Performance Max is going to start taking over other campaigns like Smart Shopping. Google has said, if you go look at, I forget the gal's name, she's Google's ad liaison, Ginny Marvin. Ginny Marvin came out and was talking about Performance Max and said that Performance Max is going to, in 2022, start taking over other campaigns like Smart Shopping campaigns, so they work more seamlessly for you. Here we go. Performance Max campaigns allow advertisers, blah, blah, blah. And to simplify things, in 2022, Smart Shopping and local campaigns will seamlessly upgrade to Performance Max campaigns. Seamless. We have your back. I beat this horse dead enough. But I hope this is helpful, and I'd love to spark and catalyze a conversation. And please, y'all, the comments have been so enlightening, and I've learned so much. And I've been held accountable, which I really appreciate too, because otherwise I just fly off the handle a little bit. So I'd love to know what you think about this. Thank you so much to all of you that subscribe and to watch, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up. That lets YouTube know we actually know what we're doing. We shoot a video every single day, so if you want to be notified, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any input, don't hesitate to hit us up in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. We get very little human interaction. Thanks for supporting our channel, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.